Are we good?
Mm-hmm. Or the Board of Ed, this is
I'll go for that.
Okay.
Committee.
Good evening, everybody. This is the first meeting of the Community Engagement and Communications Committee. It's September 27th. It's 7 p.m. or shortly thereafter, I guess, about 7:06. We'll start out with introductions and work our way through the agenda. Edith, would you just say a word or two about yourself?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Edith Horn. I'm a concerned citizen who lives here in Greenburgh. I'm also a retired teacher of 40 years from one of the school districts here in Westchester County, the smallest school district in Westchester County. And I do have a concern, and I did submit a question.
Okay, we'll hear about it later on. I'm David Warner. I'm a member of the Board of Education. I started out with a 5-year-old daughter. She's now graduated from Woodlands High School, gone through graduate school and got a job and a boyfriend and a dog and happy family. I want good things to happen for the next generation of kids coming up behind her. That's why I'm here. Jessica.
Hi, I'm Jessica Muldoon, community member as well as a parent of a first grader, and realizing I need to pay attention to ECP for next year for my little guy. And I work for the New York City Department of Education, so I'm in my 17th year as an educator. So I like this group because it really does connect all the facets of the district. So good evening, everyone.
Good. Liz.
Hi, everybody. I'm Liz Anastasi. I'm the outreach coordinator at Greenburgh Public Library, and glad to be back here for a new school year.
Laser.
Laser alert, network administrator.
Okay. Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah Lazari. I am a concerned community member, former parent and future parent of 2 kids. Thanks.
Thank you. Walter Simon.
Walt Simon, member of the Facility Finance Committee, Tech Committee, concerned citizen who's been active in the school board for many years with my children, grandchildren, and continue to do my best to work with the school system.
Thank you. Jamal.
Jamal Thomas, new trustee for Greenburgh Schools, and happy to be a part of the Community Engagement Committee. Really looking forward to the work we're going to do together.
Kelly.
Sorry about that. Hi, everyone. My name is Kelly Ross Johnson.
Oh.
How are you? I'm a teacher in Yonkers Public Schools. I also graduated from Woodlands High School a long time ago. And I have a son that's currently at Bailey. So I always loved being on this committee. I've been participating with this committee for a while, and also I'm interested in the education committee as well. But it's nice work. I look forward to working with you guys.
Very good. The other Kelly, Kelly Sheehan.
Other Kelly, hi. I'm Kelly Sheehan. I'm a member of the Lee F. Jackson PTA. My daughter is a first grader at LFJ, and I'm looking forward to working with this committee and help making some progress.
Tanya.
My name is Tanya Dragic. I am a board trustee.
Okay. Roy.
Roy Fenichel, Greenburgh parent, and we're all big fans of Liz and the library.
Samantha.
Hi there, Samantha Ives. I have a 4th grader at Bailey, a 1st grader at Jackson. I am the Highview PTA president. I'm also on karate carpool duty, so I'm going to hop off in a hot minute and hop back on as soon as I drop off the kids. Thanks for having me.
Very good. Amy.
Hi, I'm an Amy Huang, longtime parent of the community, kind of like you, except mine is not as old. I have an 11th grader and 7th grader, and currently on car driving, professional chauffeuring duty. So that's why I'm not on video. So, but I'm interested in community engagement, interested in what's happening with Greenburgh, interested in what's good for our kids and the future generations.
Very good. All right. Anybody I missed? Hearing none. Introductions complete. The next item on the agenda is the chair election. There are 3 board members on the committee: Tanya Dragic, myself, and Jamal Thomas. Jamal has expressed a strong interest in doing a lot of community outreach, outreaching to the business in this community, bringing in the students, and so he's expressed an interest in chairing the committee. I've been around for a long time. I think there are things that he needs to know before he completely takes over. So I'm also interested in chairing the committee. So we've talked it over, and we think we can co-chair, because you can reach out and have the necessary authority, and we can do that. And my thinking is, in the long term, I'll probably be backing away, and Jamal will be moving to the front. But for this year, I think we'd like to co-chair. But Jamal, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, I mean, we did talk about it, David, and I certainly know that I can learn a bunch from your experience. I'm fine with co-chairing the committee, and as David said, I'm definitely going to be extremely engaged with the community at large, the students, business community, teachers, alumni. I think that if we all connect and bring our heads together around what's going on with our new strategic plan and everything that's going on with the district, that we'll all be a lot better for it. So I'm looking forward to that.
Very good. So Tanya?
Yeah, so I just, I know that we had this discussion, and I just did want to say that, David, you do bring a tremendous amount of experience. You've done this committee for a very long time. So I'm just going to reiterate my suggestion that Jamal chairs it and you be the secretary, because you're just an incredible note taker, and that's my suggestion. But however you guys want to work it out is fine by me. I just think it's always easier to have one chair than 2, but that's just my 2 cents.
Okay. Comments from anyone else? All right, then the official process is to go through a process. Dr. Iverson.
Hi. I had so much difficulty. Yeah, I texted you, Trustee Warner. I was having difficulty getting on. I had to get Laser to help me.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you. I'm glad you got in.
Yes, thank you.
We've just gone through introductions, and
okay.
And obviously, if you would like to say a word or two about yourself.
Oh, yes. Well, thank you for inviting me to your meeting. The Community Engagement Committee meeting. This is a pleasure to be able to join and just sort of observe this process. I know this is a committee that's been in place for some time in Greenburgh Central, and is very involved committee, very committed to supporting the school district. So I'm excited to just sort of watch how the meeting unfolds and the type of things you discuss, and hope to be able to fill in and add to it as much as I can. Everyone knows by now who I am. Going on 3 months in this position. We've just hit the ground running, been doing a lot of things. I've been actively engaged in my listening and learning tour, as most of you probably know a little bit about. And I'm hoping to have a meeting with people on this call as well around some of the things that I'm doing along the way, and meeting with key stakeholders. So stay tuned for that. So thank you. I will just sort of be here. And thank you.
We're going to hear from you in much greater depth and detail in a few minutes after we get through some other pieces. So welcome. All right. So we were in the midst of having a discussion about being the chair, who will be the chair of the committee. And so far, I've expressed a desire to be co-chairs with Jamal. Jamal said a few words about what he'd like to do. Tanya Dragic has come back and said, no, I think it's better to have one chair than two. And that's as far as we've gotten. And I asked for anybody else who had any comments, and then you showed up. So does anybody else have any comments?
Samantha has a hand up.
Okay, Samantha?
Hi, thank you. Having co-chaired within the district, as disparate as we are, but as hard as we work to work together and communicate, in my experience, it's more effective to have one chair so that everybody knows who to email chair questions to. I agree 100% with Tanya. David, your experience is invaluable, and I think the secretary drives a meeting, and that is a perfect role for you. I'm open to you co-chairing. I trust you, but Jamal, I think this is an excellent committee for you to be on. And for my part, knowing who to have a clean line of communication to, I would prefer one chair.
Jessica?
I agree with what Sam just said.
Okay, so let's, any other comments?
Yeah, I would like to comment. One of the things, now that I'm up in age and been involved for a long time, it's always good to pass the torch, but there has to be a strong communication in terms of giving the new person background information. So in making a decision, they have a complete understanding of the background as you move forward in a positive direction. So in that sense, I think, David, you must, whether it's secretary or the vice chair or what, I think it's extremely important that we have that reservoir of knowledge that's available to the chair.
Okay, noted. Anybody else?
I just want to say that institutional memory is always important.
Right.
All right, so what we're going to do officially, and I think I know how this is going to come out, but we ought to do it.
Amy actually has a
by
hand up.
rights. So do I hear
Amy
a
Huang has a question. David, Amy has a question.
Go ahead.
Her hand is raised.
Okay, David, I think the only point I would reiterate, I think is continuity. I think whatever happens, I'm okay with is if we could make sure that we have continuity. And that's a theme that I've asked for our schools, going from school to school, but also, joining the committee. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, so as I understand it, we have, in terms of official voting members, the voting members are the people who've been approved by the board or the board members. So the official people who can vote on this would be Tanya Dragic, myself, Jamal, and the list of people who volunteered and got approved on the 21st are Liz Anastasi, Samantha Ives, Giovanni Isaguerra, Sarah Lazari, Steve Morton, Jessica Muldoon, Kelly Ross Johnson, and Mary Spells. So whatever people from that list are here, yes, go ahead.
I sent in my name. My name is not on that list.
Your name is not on the list that made it into the board list that got approved on the 21st. So you may be on the board you may be on the committee in the future, but it hasn't happened yet.
Okay. Yeah, 'cause I sent it in, what you said, 21st. I must have sent it in about 3 or 4 days ago. So that would have been after the
After the
21st.
21st.
Okay,
Okay.
that's fine.
So, what I'd like to do is, as I see it, there are two options. One is Jamal Thomas DW together, and the other is Jamal Thomas only. Those appear to be the options. Does anyone want to make any other nominations or any other changes? Hearing none.
Yeah.
So we,
Can I just ask a question? I'm sorry, this
Sure.
is Kelly Sheehan. Yeah, I emailed you back on August 31st, so I'm not able to vote on this. And that's fine, because I don't have the knowledge of, who you all are. But am I officially on the committee? I guess is my question moving forward.
So if the board voted you in for the year, then you're in for the year. One of the, if you follow the links for the documents that are up online, I do have the list of people that were passed in terms of like board action
Okay, so you
at the
did
meeting on
read
the
my-
21st.
Okay.
And those are the people who've made it on so far. I was planning on asking people a little later on if more people want to join the committee, but that won't be official until the board blesses it, until the board passes a resolution. So the people who can vote now are these people. Okay. Okay. So at this point, I guess I'm just going to do a roll call. And if it comes out the way I think, then Jamal, you're going to be taking over very soon here. Okay. So, Tanya Dragic, in the choice between Jamal Thomas only and DW and Jamal Thomas together, how do you vote?
Jamal only.
Okay. I, David Warner, choose the version of both of us together. Jamal?
So David, obviously we had the discussion that we had, but based on, some of the things that I've heard from the other folks within the committee, I'm going to vote for myself only.
Okay. Liz Anastasi?
Jamal only.
Samantha Ives? Oh, did she fall off?
I think Sam is dropping off her kids, but she said she would be back.
We can vote very slowly. We'll see if it becomes I don't think it's gonna be a tiebreaker, but we'll come back to her. Giovanna Isaguera, is she here? Okay. Sarah Lazari?
I would say Jamal only.
Steve Morton. Don't think he's here.
I saw him.
Wait, Steve Morton, are you there?
Maybe he left.
Steve had to sign out because he's watching a news.
Okay. Jessica Muldoon?
I'm going to say Jamal only.
Kelly Ross Johnson?
I actually like the two of you working together.
Okay. And Mary Spells, I don't think it's here. Okay, so that's Jamal Thomas has it. Congratulations, Jamal.
Thank you so much, David. And like we discussed, regardless the continuity that everybody is looking for, I'm sure is going to happen. Me and David have had the opportunity to talk a number of times, and I absolutely positively will be leaning on him for all of his knowledge and experience on the district and how this committee is run. So thank you so much, and thank you everybody for trusting me to do this.
Mr. Simon.
Now, I'm not an official member of this committee, so what is my role tonight?
You can participate in terms of talking. If there's a recommendation that we have to vote on, then your vote doesn't count yet. Once the board passes a resolution with you on there, then you'll be a voting member for the balance of the year. It has to be renewed every year.
Thank you.
So we will ask about that in a little while. So at this point, Jamal, would you like to share the meeting now?
Sure. So thank you guys. I definitely appreciate it. And I guess we will just keep on moving through our agenda. So I'll immediately need David's help because adopting meeting minutes is not something I'm familiar with. So David, what exactly does it mean to adopt meeting minutes and how do we go about doing that?
So we probably should do some screen sharing in order to look at the minutes of the previous meeting. And then we look at those minutes for a little while. Everyone has that link that I sent you guys up to Google Drive that shows the actual minutes that were taken following those previous meetings. We look at them, we figure out if there are any comments that people want to make, any corrections, and then you can come back and either say, I want these corrections, and then you either adopt it as amended or you adopt it unchanged. You make a motion, you have a second, and you vote on it. And usually it's by acclamation unless somebody really has an issue, which is almost never.
Thank you for that. Do I have screen sharing capability? It says the host has disabled participant screen sharing. Laser, I don't know if you need to share the screen for the meeting minutes.
Yes, I can do that right now. Hold on.
Thank you.
Okay.
Laser, were you giving me the ability to share, or were you going to share?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you can share the screen now.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
All right, looks like I need to update my Zoom in order to share. So, Laser, is it possible you can you can do the sharing? Or David, if anybody had, like, I have it the minutes up, but it's not allowing me to share.
I'm waiting. Give Laser a minute.
Oh, sorry, I was helping Dr. Harris. I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Laser. Oh my goodness.
No problem.
Laser is about to, you need to share the screen because Jamal's got software issues.
Oh, okay.
I gotta update my Zoom.
What am I sharing?
The CEC meeting minutes 4/26/21.
Is that on the website or?
That is on Google Docs. That was there's a link in the email that I sent out.
I just direct messaged it to you in the chat, Laser.
Okay, hold on a second.
So, David, I'm actually going to ask that you go through the minutes. I'm going to watch exactly what you do. So in the future, I'll know exactly what to do.
Okay. So I'll do one set of minutes. You do the other set of minutes.
Even better.
Which item do you want me to share first?
the 4/26/21 meeting minutes. So it's CEC meeting minutes 042621.pdf. 042621.
Okay, hold on 1 second.
See, Walter, they do want us to upgrade everything, man. Like you said.
Yeah.
That's the guy. Okay. So taking you back in time, can everybody see it?
Yes.
Good. So
Yes.
April 26th, we were coming up on budget season. So we had a meeting in which I think we did pretty much nothing but go through almost nothing but go through questions and answers on the budget. And so this is more or less a Q&A on what happened with the budget. And of course, different people have filed the minutes different months. So Lisa Raymond, Assistant Superintendent for Business, and Dr. Corey Reynolds were there primarily to deal with those questions. So if you take a look through, page through it, and see if you see anything that that doesn't look accurate, especially if you were there at the meeting. So on the first page, we talked about tax cap calculations, expenses. Is there money in the budget for training new and current school board members, et cetera, et cetera? Does anyone see anything in this set of minutes that needs to be amended or corrected?
Yes, Walter Simon here. I think there's a comma misplaced. This is 1 point, shouldn't that be 11 million? We have four.
But
yeah.
where are you?
Okay,
What page?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines down. Shouldn't that be 11 million? The comma is misplaced. 11,107,000. You see the number? You see that?
Difference between tax levy to remain under the tax cap and proposed tax levy, David?
Yeah, there's the 4 digits in the last column.
On the first page.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a minor typo, that's all.
Okay, so we have one change, misplaced, comma. Anyone else? Okay, hearing none. Do I hear a motion to adopt the meeting minutes as amended?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Minutes are adopted. Okay. Laser. Bring up the May 24th meeting minutes. So that's CEC meeting minutes 052421. Okay, Jamal, take it away.
Thank you, David. So this meeting looked like started with a discussion around the reopening of schools. If you guys want to just take a quick look through the details to ensure that everything is represented properly, particularly as David mentioned before, if you were at the meeting.
I noticed just one mini typo in the reviewed minutes from the previous meeting. My last name was just spelled wrong. It was Sassy.
Okay, so we will change the spelling to get your spelling of your last name correct. Ladies, if you want to move down just a little bit, it looked like there was a discussion about the budget as well as the new members on the board and calendar planning. Again, if everybody can peruse this.
There's a bullet under calendar planning that's sort of sitting in the right-hand margin. So the formatting needs to be fixed there.
We should CEC hold an event.
The calendar planning through COVID, quantity, frequency of meetings.
Oh, I see what you're talking
district
about.
calendar, blah, blah, blah. Once it is complete, bullet on the right-hand margin.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's gonna be fixed.
And these are all just they're shared documents in Google Doc. I can just go in there and fix it. Looking down by the new district administrator, just again looking through to see if there's anything else that needs to be adjusted. And if we have nothing, can we move to have the May 24th, 2001 minutes? What's the proper verbiage, David?
Adopted as amended.
Adopted as amended.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, guys. So moving on with our agenda for this evening, committee charges, meetings, and events. So David, you put this one in there. Do you want to speak to the committee charges and meetings? I believe that was a discussion around whether we're going to hold the meetings at the same time.
So what's happening is this: I've got two documents. One deals with the charges of the committee itself, and the second one is a draft of the web topic that'll end up on the website. And we'll modify that, and that takes in all the stuff about what events we're going to have this year, who's on the committee, all that sort of thing. So the first one to do is to look at the at CEC charges info. Okay, good. We have it up in front of us. So basically, what's sitting on the website is something that was adopted a couple of years ago. And what has happened is, I believe I lifted from the minutes of last year's first meeting that we were looking at things and making a request of the superintendent that we modify our charges for the combined CEC, the Community Engagement Committee and Communications Committee together. And that appears, as far as I was able to determine, not to have ever made it to board approval. So, so we're kind of sitting here with something in the past. Now, I should explain that the process is we can make requests to the superintendent. The superintendent, since it's a committee of the district, gets to decide what she thinks those charges should be, and then she puts them up to the board for approval. So we can suggest to the superintendent what we think they should be, but she comes back with the actual charges. So what we're discussing now is what we think those charges should be. And since Dr. Iverson is here, she can weigh in right now, or she can take it offline and consider the matter. But if you, right, so there's the recommendation from last year. And you can see the mission remains unchanged. The Community Engagement and Communications Committee shall engage the GCSD community by serving as a liaison between the Board of Education and all members of the community by delivering clear, concise, and timely information through a variety of two-way communication platforms. So we're basically sitting here communicating with the public as to, you know, basically a little bit of everything that the district is doing, and the public is able to come back to us and tell us what they think. So two-way communication, that's the main mission. Then underneath that are the charges, okay? And the suggestion that we had last year before COVID came down on us, make recommendations for district-wide communications policy with procedures, make recommendations for ways to increase and create partnerships and communication with the PTAs, local businesses, organizations, civic associations, and municipalities. I think that's what we all want to do. Make recommendations for a plan to implement a community-wide survey by thought exchange. That was a suggestion last year. To gather information regarding our district to include, but not limited to, our students' educational experience. So you're getting kind of a climate of how the students are experiencing things, including its effectiveness and the effectiveness of our current communication efforts to student, faculty, and staff and the needs of the district. So we can make recommendations to make the process better. And then finally, make recommendations to continue to build community trust and strengthen perception of our school district. That's what we'd settled on last time. I don't know if people feel that things have significantly shifted since then, or what people's comments are. What do people think of this particular set of charges?
So David, I have a question. So these charges are fairly nebulous and sort of, I mean, obviously they make sense, but I mean, I think that you will notice that even tonight the people who have joined this meeting are the people who usually join the meeting. So I don't know if our charges should be more specific in terms of the way that we will move forward to engage the various stakeholder groups. You know, we've talked about this, you know, it's basically, you know, students, staff, parents, and then kind of the wider community that includes people who don't have children in the school district. We have, as we all know, a large senior population that we need to engage. So I'm just wondering if this is something that's just sufficient to be posted, or if we should really be thinking about more specific charges, you know, and kind of laying out the different groups that we really need to reach out to, and how we're going to actually do this. And Jamal, I don't know if you have any ideas on this now that you're the chairman of the committee, you know, and you know how you might word these charges, or you know what your recommendation. And of course, I want to hear from everyone else who's here, but that's kind of my overall impression, is that they're too vague, and then we just kind of fall right back into the same old meetings with the same people attending, and I appreciate that they're attending, but we want more. That's really my question.
So I think taking into what you just said into consideration, Tanya, one or two things could be done. We can start with these charges and make it a point, during a meeting, and or I don't know if there's like a community engagement, kind of work session where we can come together to add some more meat to the bones, because I agree that they are, kind of generic in nature, but certainly it can govern. It covers all the bases in terms of high level what we want to be doing with the committee. Does anybody else have anything they want to share in that regard?
Walter Simon here. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mission statement should be generic. It should be broad-based. And then once you have the mission statement, then you develop specifics within the broad mission statement. So mission statement should be relatively brief, cover specific points, and that's the mission statement. And then, as I said, then you develop key action points consistent with the mission statement. So I have no problem with the mission statement, but now we have to go to the next step and develop the key action steps consistent with the mission statement.
I just want to piggyback on what Walter says. This is Edith Horn speaking. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I agree with what Walter said. You need to really have goals now for each one of these statements. And then once you have your goals, which would be SMART goals, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time tested. Once you have those, then you get into your action plan, exactly what you're going to do. So while this is good, and it's good, it's kind of broad, like you said, but now you need to decide what are you going to do to, I'm just using this as an example, to strengthen the perception of the school district. And you talked about how there are seniors out there who do not have children in the schools, but maybe there are seniors who have grandchildren in the schools, and maybe you need to have a day dedicated to them and some of the activities so that they can see what's going on in the school. So when it comes time to vote for the budget, that now, okay, seniors have a better idea of what's happening. Just a thought.
What'd you say, David?
I said just a thought.
Yes, I definitely love that idea. So it sounds to me like the best thing to do is to ask Dr. Iverson if you would like an opportunity to kind of take a look at this and then have the board ultimately vote on it. Would you like to speak to anything here tonight, Dr. Iverson?
Thank you, Trustee Thomas. This is my first time just sort of looking over the minutes with you and looking at this. So I would pause to be specific about where my thoughts at this point. What I would conclude and agree with that possibly the next step for this committee is to flesh out what those recommendations are for each bullet so that you get more specific. I do think less is more. You have 4 strong bullets here that are loaded. And so thinking about one specific, and these are just thoughts, again, for my first time seeing it tonight, but thinking of one specific action the committee would engage or has a goal or an objective for each bullet, and then fleshing out from that specific action the who, what, when, and where, and how. I think the mission statement is still very strong. I tend to think of mission statements as being that phrase, vision being where we want to go, and mission being what we're going to do to get there. So when you think about those two ways of looking at it, I think the mission statement addresses that, how, and I hear it's through timely information through a variety of two-way communication platforms. So clearly, I think that's articulates where this committee is headed and how you want to get there. So I think what I've heard is I would agree with at this point, just fleshing out what the bullets look like. So if you're going to make recommendations for district-wide communications policy with procedures, what does that look like? That's the kind of language we use a lot as educators when I'm working with principals. What will that look like, and what will be evidence of that working? So fleshing out those types of thoughts about the 4 bullets, or even deciding among the 4 bullets here, do you still commit to all 4? Are there 1 or 2 that are more of a priority? Because this is a lot to work on. Mm-hmm. So you may want to think about prioritizing either the 4 bullets here, and then fleshing out 1 or 2 more thoroughly, because I just do believe less is more, but having more high yield bullets so that in 1 or 2, you are still encompassing probably all 4 of these, if that makes sense.
It does. It does. Thank you, Dr. Anderson. Go ahead, David.
Okay, so let's take a case in point. Let's work our way backwards from something specific. Okay, so I believe we had a conversation prior to this meeting in which you, Jamal, felt that we should reach out to members of the business community, and I responded that one specific thing that you could do to make a partnership with members of the business community a real and solid thing was we have this thing called the National Society for Black Engineers Junior program, right? And it's supposed to allow to encourage everyone to be all of our students to be able to work their way up into functioning members of sort of technological society. And one of the things they do is apprenticeship. Okay, so you can go online and have access to these engineers, or you can maybe get a mentor who's from the local business community, and maybe the kids go to tour a facility in the local business community, or a technology group, or whatever we have to offer. So you're going to run around the entire community and talk to all the business leaders and say, hey, can we bring our kids in? Can you provide people to mentor our kids? Okay, that would be a very, very specific recommendation. That would then fall under one of these bullets, right? Make recommendations for a plan okay. Make recommendations for ways to increase and create partnerships and communications with local business organizations. Okay, there's that specific thing. So now the question is, do you want to say we will attempt, we will cover the entire local area in an attempt to recruit partners for the National Society of Black Engineers Junior program? Is that what you want to see as a goal? Does that belong in the charges?
Well, David, that would be a mission. And the mission would be, greater communication with business and municipalities. That's the mission. And then when we go to goals, and then that's where you
right. So it's another level down. So yes, you notice that the stem of each of these bullets says make recommendations, make recommendations, make recommendations. That's because what the function of the committee is to primarily to make recommendations, and then the board says, yes, go ahead with what you recommend, and then we may go ahead and work to implement that. The administration may go ahead to work to implement it. We will partner in various ways to make things work. But the question now is, do you want those goals in the charges, or do they belong as like sub-bullets of the charges, or are you going to flesh out the goals someplace else?
I think we'll definitely flesh out the goals someplace else. What I would invite everybody to do, and what I will do is I'm going to create some additional documents, one to take each of the bullet points that we have here into consideration, and we can use that document as a working document where everybody can kind of come in and start to lay ideas out, and then we can start to prioritize those ideas during one of our next meetings. Does that make sense to everybody? And Tanya, I know you have your hand up.
So I have a question which really basically gets at the core of the purpose of a committee. And I have a problem with the whole recommendations, because I think what happens is that we talk a lot in committees and then we make recommendations, and the recommendations are almost inevitably accepted by the board, but then really nothing happens, right? And so I'm just wondering if there's a possibility of doing this differently, which is that we really organize within this committee to take on certain tasks and actually do the legwork that we are proposing to do. Because the problem is, you make a recommendation and then what? Like, are you then going to go back to the committee and get volunteers? I mean, so I think overall, what I feel is that, you know, these committees are just kind of spinning their wheels, and at the end of the day, we don't get much done because the recommendations go nowhere. And David, I don't know if we can do this differently, where, you know, it's just possible to, you know, kind of get a committee going of dedicated people who are actually willing to do the legwork of the, you know, of what the committee thinks is important, whether it's outreach to business or seniors or, you know, getting the students to come and give us input, whatever it is. So that's kind of my general, you know, problem with this structure of the committee. I'm done.
Thank you for sharing that, Tanya. Is your hand still up, David, or was that just from before?
It's just from before.
Okay. Yes, taking everything that you said into consideration, Tanya, you're absolutely positively right. That does occur, and it is my sincere hope that that I don't believe that that's going to be the case this time. One, because some of the work is certainly going to fall, you know, directly on me. Like I'm going to go out and speak to these businesses, and I'll report to the committee, you know, who I'm communicating with, how I'm communicating, and I'll look for you guys, you know, judgment in how to best navigate said conversation. So as well as the commitment that Tanya's talking about to do some of the same things. So I think we're not saying a whole bunch different, other than we have to move from recommendation to action, and I think that you know, that's been expressed by multiple folks. So anybody else have anything else they want to share?
I have a question or a comment. This is Edith again. I understand what you're saying about going into the business community, and that I think is a great thing to do. The only thing that I'm questioning is that you have 4 bullets here. That's 1 bullet, and you're 1 person. So is it possible for others in this group to take on another bullet, come up with ideas? You know, maybe we take this group and make 4 groups, so that we can, when we come back, we'll have those 4 goals. Those, I'm just asking, because what you said was very good, but that's one bullet. You see what I'm saying? And I would hope that you would want to have this done, meaning the students, having the students, the teachers, whoever's going to participate. You wanted that done this year. You don't want it for next year. So we want to be able to work as quickly as possible. And so that's the question I have, or the comment that I have. But I think we need to figure out how this group is going to function. Are you going to work in spreading this group into 4 groups because you have 4 points, or is it at our next meeting we're going to focus just on the goals as a whole? And okay, we know the mission, we know the bullets. Now let's take, maybe we'll say we get 5 ideas for each bullet. That's at our next meeting. So you know, because you have to also think about the time that you're spending on these things. Okay. And that's where people, I think, have a problem sometimes. So, you have to figure out the structure. That's the word I'm looking for. The structure of how this is going to work.
Absolutely agreed. Samantha?
Hi, all. Glad to be back. I want to give a little language because I want to make sure that we don't talk in circles, because I think I agree 110% that happens in committees. So we've looked at, I'm looking at the screen. We've looked at a vision, we've looked at a mission, and by breaking the mission down, now we're looking at a mandate. And if our mandate is to act on these, organize ourselves, and achieve goals, we have to have that mandate approved. And what I heard Tanya saying is that right now, that's not how committees in this board work. So before we get too ahead of ourselves, I just want to get maybe an answer to Tanya's question. Can we activate this committee to create a mandate and act on it? Or are we, I hate to use the word stuck, but stuck operating under current board procedures? Can you give us some guidance on that?
I honestly, I don't have, David, do you? I'm not sure what procedures are there to prevent us from acting. Like,
so here's the deal. It all depends on what the action is. So if the action is install sprinklers at RJ Bailey, and you go into the committee and as part of the CEC meeting, you say, we need sprinklers at RJ Bailey, and you recommend it, and you make noise in various ways, and eventually the administration has to put the sprinklers in, and we made noise for a long time, and eventually that happened, okay? That particular set of actions is such that we make a recommendation, and then the administration has to follow through. In other cases, there are things that the community can do. So if it's like, oh yeah, go out and do a survey, oh yeah, go out and contact all these people, then that's an action that's perfectly normal for committee members to do. So you can go to the board and say, we recommend that you go after this program and you do this, that, and the other thing. And then they can certainly kick it back to you under the existing structure and say, go forth, do this, we authorize you. And then everything is fine and you don't have to change the structure. I don't think we're prevented from doing legwork depending upon what the kind of legwork is.
Samantha, does that answer your question?
She has more.
I don't have more. I just turned my computer off in the middle of wanting to answer you. It answers my question, but here's my concern, having sat on committees with so many of you lovely people and working within this district for so many years as a volunteer. There is so much goodwill and there's so much energy and there is so much community outreach, but there is a lot of spent effort with not a lot of organization from the top. Right. So if we're going to start filling in these bullet points and breaking down the to-do lists and taking on these charges, I personally would like to know that we have the blessing to do that, and that what we find will then be utilized, and that there's preparation for that to be utilized, and it's not just all going to be stuck in committee for years and years and years. I understand the structure as it is now, and I'm glad that there are things that the community members can go ahead and do, but then, we send it up to the board says, okay, community members are good to do that, and it comes back down to us, so we do the work, we send it back up to the board, and it still doesn't go anywhere. There's no guarantee, but I want to make sure that the structure is in place so that we know we're working toward that common goal and not expecting to be spinning our wheels.
Can you give us an example?
I can give you an example if you don't. Go ahead, Sam. I'm sorry.
I don't know. I can't do it. You go ahead. You go ahead. It's better if I'm not the only one talking.
So I'm going to give you a very concrete example, David, which is, for example, Walter, I hope you don't mind me using you as an example. So we have a member of the committee who lives in High Point. Am I correct?
Correct.
So rather than going through this rigmarole of recommending an action, having it approved by the board, then coming back within the committee, we could, for example, say, you know, we really need to reach out to the seniors at High Point and sort of get them more educated about the district and involved. And we choose Walter to do this, and somebody else on the committee can go there and help him. And Walter is going to go to the board and ask them if, you know, they're willing to have a presentation, maybe by our superintendent or maybe by Jamal or whatever, right? We decide this in the committee and we just do it, right? Rather than going through this back and forth, where eventually it seems like things just fade out of existence. So that's just an example.
Yeah, and
So,
then.
Go ahead, Walter, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Walter, I just used you as.
No, I have no problem with that, none at all, you know.
Okay.
Not only do I live in High Point, I'm on the board of High Point.
I mean, that's a connection, right? That's the whole point of having, you know, these connections through committees.
And I can tell you, it is a difficult group, because if the bond issue went down, in large part because the seniors here in High Point voted against it. A huge turnout of people at High Point voted against it. I spoke for it, and I for a while I was the Darth Vader of High Point, because I spoke up and talked about the need to have this type of communication. So I'm all in favor of setting up a meeting or a series of meetings, so you can the residents here could have you know, members of the board or committee or the superintendent just speak to them in terms of what's happening in the school district, because High Point is probably our biggest nut to crack. You have what, 500, you have 550 units, or probably, I don't know, 1,000 voters or someplace near that. And I think it's important that we establish a positive communication with the residents here at High Point.
Am I to understand that currently, based on what you guys are saying, that there's something in place that will prevent us from doing exactly what Dr. Dragic just said, that we as a committee can't work to do that? We have to go to the board first, the board in its entirety, to have something like that happen?
As I understand it, we're going to have a set of charges, and that set of charges needs to be approved by the board. So if the set of charges, amongst other things, says, hey, we want to do outreach to neighborhood associations, then the board says, yes, then we've got a generic high-level recommendation, and we can operate under that recommendation. The more specific you make the recommendation, the more you limit yourself.
That's right. Exactly. You should be outreach to community organizations, outreach meetings to community organizations. And you should not be more, then it's up to the committee to set up the dates or what organization they want to speak.
So maybe the best thing to do is to make sure that those goals don't become part of the charges. Like you said, the goals need to be separate. Board approves charges, we come up with goals.
So again, I'm most certainly in agreement with that, and as I mentioned, I think that, you know, from here, going back to the beginning. So Dr. Iverson, we're going to give her an opportunity to review this, and then Dr. Iverson would need to approve this, David, and the board would need to approve these charges. Okay, so we will move to have these charges approved by the board and by administration. And outside of this, we will have a specific set of SMART goals that we collectively work together to execute on.
Okay, so we will move this set of 4 bullets to Dr. Iverson for her to look at for approval. and then we'll work on the goals.
And when will that be? When will we have noticed that this has been approved?
It goes on to the next agenda, once Dr. Iverson has finished reviewing it.
So
Dr. Iverson, is this something you can just look at in a day or two? If we don't have to come up with the goals?
I guess I would love to just look at this now and approve it. And I would need to see more fleshed out. I would like to be clear on just what, as I said, what it looks like, what part of this is the responsibility of the administration in terms of assuring that we are doing what's charged of us from the charges. And so I don't think as it is now that this is clear enough. So to just holistically say yes and not be very clear on who's doing what, so I can measure and can assure that the pieces that are expected of the administration are being done. As I probably have to delegate some of that out, I wouldn't be comfortable just approving as is.
Okay.
But I think this is something still should can get as a full board and as well as you said, Trustee Thomas, and weigh in. Yeah, I guess that's what I would say to that.
And I will go back and talk about mission statements. If you look at a mission statement of an organization, of a corporation, it's usually no more than a paragraph, and
Right.
it just sets out broad statements. And then it's up to the individual departments or, or individual divisions. Okay, I put on my corporate hat. The mission statement for the corporation was very broad, that just set what it is that the corporation stands for, and that was it. Then each division, each department then have to set their own goals consistent with the mission.
Exactly.
So you don't want, so in the mission statement, at that level, you don't worry about who's going to do what and how. Is that this is the overall goal of the committee, overall goal, without saying who's going to do what. And then you go in and you say, hey, if we could do this goal, that means that I have to commit a certain amount of personnel. I have to worry about the time. Do I have the personnel to do it? And then that's at that level, you flush that out.
So Dr. Iverson, I guess the board will be in communication around the charges so that we can come up with, precisely what it needs to be for you to be comfortable with it, for it to move to the board for approval. So Edith, I in terms of answering your question on when, we're going to try our damnedest to make it so that this is something that'll be on our October
On the October agenda.
For the October agenda board meeting.
Yeah.
October 5th or October 19th, one or the other.
Okay.
Tanya?
Yeah, so again, my question is, so I actually agree with Walter about the sort of, the brevity and the generality of the charges, but I think at the same time, so first of all, I just want to reassure Dr. Iverson that this is all the work that this committee will do will be by the committee. It's not, it's not like we're going to be pulling admin into this, right? Unless, or if we do, it will be a request, for example, for, if you would, I know that, for example, you're planning to do one of your, I'm sorry, I lost the word, one of your community talks, out, and that we actually spoke about this at one of the leadership meetings, how you could do this. So maybe the committee would invite you to come and speak to a particular population or something, but I think generally we're talking about the committee doing work. And I'm just wondering if we are actually allowed within our charges to give ourselves that leeway to go out into the community without waiting for board approval first, right? To just, speak about our district and engage the community about our district. I think, because I think otherwise it becomes a very cumbersome process. So that's really that I'm sorry I'm harping on this, but I think that I think I'd like to kind of streamline the process so that we can actually engage the community, as opposed to just kind of playing ping pong back and forth between the board and the committee.
I agree.
It sounds to me, based on what David said, that if we leave our charges to a place where they are, you know, not the specific goals, but they lead to the specific goals, that we will be in a position to do just that. Because I didn't necessarily, if I'm going to go to Tesla, I didn't have intention, and somebody has to tell me if if I'm wrong in that, but it wasn't my intention to bring each of these things, you know, directly to the board for kind of an up or down vote. I just thought, you know, we're engaging the community, let's go do it, and communicate with the folks on the community engagement committee, to let everybody know exactly what's happening, when it's happening, and keeping everybody abreast of what's progress. So I think that we can move forward with that being our understanding.
I just think that you have to remember how much time you're going to spend on these things. And that's what I think sometimes gets away from us. The highest return, you have to do what's essential, because that gives you the highest return on the investment of our time. And that is so important. And if you have a goal and you do not have a date attached to it, it will not happen. You will continue to spin your wheels. So Tanya, I'm sorry, I don't know your last name that well, but I agree with her. We don't want to keep spinning our wheels, because that's what tends to happen. So if as I participate on this committee, you're going to hear me talk a lot about when is this happening? When is the date? Because without it, it just keeps spinning and spinning and spinning.
Okay. Everybody, I promise you, you guys have all been heard, and we're going to provide, you know, set dates. I believe in our next meeting we'll be able to get a lot more specific about a bunch of the specific actions that we're going to look to take as a result of it. So I know it's starting to get a little bit late. I want to start to move through the rest of the agenda. The next part is Dr. Iverson, and I believe we're going to speak quickly to school opening.
But wait, before we go forward, are we handing these bullets and this mission off to Dr. Iverson for editing? As is?
Yeah.
Yes or no?
To me, as I was looking at them for the first time today, I think they're fine as is. I think Dr. Iverson could possibly look at them. I'm not going to tell her what to do. She's a superintendent of schools. You look at them, yes or no. It's less than a paragraph. It's not hard.
Okay, sure.
Okay. So
Thank
good? All right, go ahead.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you,
you.
Dr. Iverson, the floor is yours.
Yes, and I have a lot to say. You know, we're still sort of in the opening of school, almost. We had our first full week last week and just beginning our second full week. And so we're still ironing out some of the things that happen when we open schools around things you expect, buses and transportation, assuring that all routes are getting kids picked up and to school and back home on time. We've had an influx, which is a good news, of a lot of new students. I was in Highview today and walking around with Principal Mastrangelo, and he was commenting to me about how last year, you know, we were remote nationally, and so were you. But he had around 221 students, and he's up to now 242, almost 20 more kids. And so we were looking at space in case we have to add another class. So it's a good problem to have. But with that becomes the concern for transportation and all the pieces we need to get our students to school and having enough drivers. So a lot of conversations in the opening with Frank Dunn and Lisa Raymond around buses and combining routes. What can we do to find new drivers, being very aggressive about recruiting drivers, meeting with Royal Coach, and really leaning on them heavily for what they're committed to do for the district. They are our contractor that we pay to assure that we have buses. And so bringing them in the discussion with to say that's what we expect of them to do. And we were able to come, and they too, working with us, have done a lot of things on their end to recruit drivers. But so we're getting them to school. Like I said, we're able to combine some routes. We were able to offer some bus passes to some of the students who are going to a private schools in the Bronx who are of age to catch the bus. And those parents receive one-on-one personal calls to request that they will let that happen. And our parents agreed. And so some of our students who are private school students are getting bus passes. So we've been able to sustain our buses and get everyone to school on time and as safely as possible. So that piece of reopening we're still working on every day, but it's better. I talk to Frank almost every day, and he alerts me of how the buses are still running in terms of bus drivers. I don't know what trend we're in right now, but we are having a lot of resignations of bus drivers right on the day, just deciding to go elsewhere, getting better offers from other school systems, sign-on bonuses. And it's just a group right now, there's just not people out there who just want to do that work. So that is an ongoing goal we have to continue to strengthen and ensure that we can get the students to school. But the opening first day, as many schools as I tried to get around to see that opening, I did want to look at the flow, look at the drop off, how kids entered the building, and kind of walk the halls a little bit. They were all the schools, very, very smooth. Everyone was excited to see the students, all of them coming back now together. The teachers were all on duty and outside and in the halls, and the aura all in all the schools I felt was just very welcoming, very exciting, and just caring, an environment of just so happy to see the children. And I don't know if you do recall, on my superintendent conference day, we did some work around SEL, and each school had time to flesh out a planner that included specific actions that they were going to put in place by building to help our kids get readjusted to coming back to school full time. As we know, we're coming off of being out of school almost a full year. So that was apparent in my initial visits as I was just watching, observing, and greeting parents and talking to teachers and talking to students. It's exciting. And now what I'm doing is spending a little more time in buildings, one-on-one, more time with principals to begin my work and working with the administrators around how they're leading their buildings, where they see their, asking questions around what's their plan around improving certain actions and things in their buildings. The kind of talks you have with principals and leaders to help them be better at what they do and to help move student achievement. So I have those scheduled with every principal once a month on my calendar. But we meet as principals and administrators once a month. We've had two, and we continue to dialogue around how we can continue to make Greenburgh Central this world-class school district, what needs to be fixed and how we can do that. So I can't say the opening was anything but ideal. We had no real problems, and that's good news. We are at this point still trying to just fill vacancies, not only in bus drivers. We've had a lot of staff just write a letter, I'm gone tomorrow. In those cases, I've had to really hold them to the 30 days until we could fill the seat as much as possible. But other districts are still hiring and people are still interviewing. So still working on that's an ongoing goal. We're not completely staffed yet. We still are working on filling all of our positions. And so it's going well. It's just still that preliminary work that we do at the beginning of the year, just being visible, just being available, walking around schools, talking to teachers, talking to students, and beginning to, when we come together as a group, talk about what we see and what we need to do. So I'm open to questions if there are any, but I would say in a very brief way, the opening was went very smoothly.
I have a question. I have two questions, but I've just asked one at this time. How often will you be meeting with principals?
So I will develop my schedule. That is my work around working with principals as often as I can. So I will develop and see how that will look. I'm trying to shoot for once a month, and that's probably the most I can do. But yes, I will develop that work.
My second question has to do, maybe it's a little too early to ask, but has to do with getting the student scores up. So I wanted to know what measures is the school district taking to help students score above the 50th percentile on the 4th and 8th grade English language arts exam. I don't know if it's too early to ask that question, but that is a concern that I have as a former.
And if you would let me just make note, I hear your concern. Yes, it is just far too early to ask that question and for me to have an answer realistically and just to be completely transparent. We are coming not off COVID, we're still in COVID, but we are coming off of a year where we all know how students have lost some time. So to have an expectation of what kids being at that quartile by the end of the year, or I would not commit to. What I do know is that we're going to be putting in some supports for our students to bridge that gap. So what our teachers are doing right now, they're teaching grade level content. So we're all in full in person. If you're a third grader, you're learning what you're supposed to learn in third grade. But we clearly know, teachers have already identified to me, one in third grade today, how he's seeing that year of loss that our students had. So as much as possible, we're trying to fold in those high yield strategies that if we can work on it in this grade, it helps what they missed. But they're children, they're students, they've lost time. To put that pressure on youngsters to say and teachers, that it's just too unrealistic. What we know we need to do is continue to teach very high level instruction, continue to meet on data around our students, continue to make sure what our students are getting is the very best, and let those gains come back when they will. They are going to come. It's going to be slow. It is not going to happen overnight. So we don't have goals like that. We don't have a goal now. We're going to have so many here by that time, because that's just simply not realistic. We're going to try to move kids and make sure there's some growth and that they're not where they were. And slowly, as we continue to teach and COVID hopefully goes away and we can get back into the real full of doing what we did in person, we'll start to bridge that gap with some high yield strategies that we're putting in place now. Right now, they're using LLI for intervention. Teachers are still meeting with students in small group. And so the delivery of instruction is happening, but it's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight. So it will come over time though, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I have two questions.
Lloyd Court's got his hand up too.
I have made several attempts to be recognized, and I want to know why not. However, my name is Lloyd Court, and I just would like to ask the superintendent just one little question, and that is, first of all, I will say that I am elated to know that there have been such an increase in students attending school, Central 7 schools at this time. But I would like to know what mechanism she's using or the school is using so that we could affirm that these students, the addresses of these students are correct. Already I have been told that I have a kid in the school that lives at 123 South Road. That's my address. I have been living here for a very long time. My kids have went through St. Woodlands, And right now I'm having grandkids and they all are away. So I just want to know what the mechanism is used so that we will not be having students using other people's addresses to enter the school system.
So we have central registration. Any new student enrolling in our district, parents must show proof of residency with evidence such as a bill, a light bill, a water bill with their current address that should be within our district. So they have to prove residency with those documents. And that's how we know where parents are living and that they are indeed in our school district. So they just can't walk in. That's part of the registration packet.
Thank you, but I think something else has to be done.
Okay. So are you speaking of there's of students who are maybe not in our district who are already enrolled and still coming to the school system, but living somewhere else, or from the initial onset of registration? We do check that. So if we have kids in our school who've moved, for example, no longer in the district, but still attending here, that's called, yeah, that kind of home business and truancy. I'm not sure who does that in the district. That's a good point, and I will check on that, but that does happen. And I've been in several districts where that does happen, and you need a mechanism in place so someone is checking home addresses, and we need someone like you who makes us aware of who these people are so we can send someone to the home to knock on the door to see indeed if they live in our school district. So if you are aware of something like that, that's something you report to the district, and we assign someone to go knock on the door, as I said, or investigate it, if you're speaking of that. But that does happen in school systems. A child transfers or parents move out of the district, but they like to keep their child there because they're familiar with the schools, and they bring them to school every day, or even to the bus stop. And until someone tells us that, because we don't have people out there just watching, then once we find out, we put something on that to investigate. And when we do find it out, they are disenrolled right away.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Court. Walter Simon?
Yeah, my first question, I wrote a letter to the district, wrongly assuming that it could be read into the records, but that is not the procedure. So it was not read into the records, but basically, I'll distribute to anyone who would like to see it. But basically, it was in support of the requirement for vaccination and for the requirement of making masks. People use, say, my personal liberties, but there's ample court precedent that says that one's personal liberty is not absolute. And there are ways, there are legitimate reasons for putting curbs on that. In the case of not demanding that all staff has vaccination, is not an issue of personal liberty. Not when they can come into the school and can infect unvaccinated kids and other staff members. So the idea that the board can't make that determination, I don't see the reason why that cannot be done. And just like to see, I'm curious as what is the superintendent's position on that, or whether or not that is something that is a board decision and that is outside of your responsibility.
So where we are as a county, all of the districts in this county, as we've been meeting religiously, is that we're going to approach it through the lens of either be vaccinated or be tested. So what we're going to be implementing is weekly testing for those persons in the district, staff who are in the district who are unvaccinated. That's how we're going to try to mitigate that spread of the virus. And we're adding that on as another layer of prevention strategy that we have along with the others. So we're going to be rolling out a testing program. We're going to be a site where a research lab will be coming to our district. We haven't worked out logistics and dates yet, but because we have some work to do behind the scenes, such as MOAs and agreements have to be signed, and lawyers are looking at those documents and they're going back and forth for the language. Once all of that is combed out and we have signatures, what's going out, it will be tomorrow. In fact, it went out today. Staff, they did get a survey from me today, requiring them to tell us. Now, remember the first one I sent out in August was a voluntary survey trying to get numbers, who's vaccinated, who's not. So we could see just how many were coming back to school with the vaccination. We didn't get a great response. And not getting a response didn't mean necessarily that many weren't vaccinated. They had the option on that survey not even to respond. So we don't know if there were many in that group who just were vaccinated but felt it wasn't the district's business, didn't respond. We just don't know. This survey that's coming out now is now, so we've upped the ante. And now we're asking staff, you must tell us, yes, no, you're vaccinated. And they must submit proof of their card. And once we get all of that in, we'll have numbers to be able to know now who by name, who is vaccinated and who's not. And then when we roll out the weekly testing, we can assure those people are included in that testing. Parents will also have the opportunity to provide a consent form if you want your child to be tested weekly. Once the MOUs are signed by the board and with the associations, that will be coming out to parents. That's how we're going to mitigate we are not mandating vaccinations. We're mandating you aren't vaccinated, then you get tested. And that's what most systems are doing.
Okay, thank you. Now, I'm on my tablet, so I don't know how to put down my hand in my tablet. I know how to, so.
Reactions.
I'm on a
Your
tablet.
lower hand.
At the bottom.
Well,
down at
anyhow,
the bottom, it says raise hand or lower hand. You
Yeah.
click lower hand and it should go away.
on the computer. I don't know how to do my tab. Okay, just ignore it. Just
Does
ignore it.
anybody else have any additional, thank you for that, Mr. Simon. Does anybody else have any additional questions for Dr. Iverson?
Dr. Iverson, I have a question regarding what you were just talking about. Are we able to, or are you planning on finding out which students who are of the age to be vaccinated are?
No, we're just going to be sending out to the parents a consent form, and parents can consent to have their child tested or not. So we would assume that parents who have students who are vaccinated probably won't consent to testing, but we're not going to gather data on the students, just faculty and staff.
Okay, and is that for privacy concerns?
No, that's just the way the system, the county has rolled out this program. Because, we still have a lot of students who there's no vaccine for. It's not that all kids can get the vaccination, rather than target any one group that's of an age that could be vaccinated and then say how many of you are. They're just opening it up to all students and parents who would like to have their child tested weekly to let us know, and with the consent form, and assuming those whose children are vaccinated won't consent, but we're not going to. And we've not talked about it in terms of confidentiality. This was really a program first to assure that we get all the adults vaccinated in the classrooms for students, and then add students where we can.
Okay, thanks.
Ms. Ives?
Thank you. Changing directions slightly, and I'm going to apologize in advance because the puppy just found a squeaky toy, so I'm distracting him, but hopefully he'll be quiet. This is the first year I've been in the district that there hasn't been a really big push to fill out and return those free and reduced lunch forms. And for any parents who aren't familiar, you fill out a free and reduced lunch form whether you need free and reduced lunch or not, because it's how the district tracks how many of our students are at a level of need that then opens us up for Title I funding, for grant funding, for federal aid. And I would like to know if we need to start looking at those free and reduced lunch forms again as parents and making sure that we remind other parents to fill them out. Are we still, is that still being done that way? Are we still expected to be a Title I school? And to bring it back to our work as a committee, when it comes to community outreach, it's mutually beneficial to know that and to share that information with companies or people who may be interested in partnering with us, because it elevates their work to being of service to students who may be at higher need. So I'd like to know what your work is looking at regarding Title I and our broader population of students, if you don't mind speaking to that for just a minute.
So I'm in the middle of that right now. I've not looked at it in the regard of free and reduced lunch. I can check on to that. No, we're just looking at Title I funding in terms of funding and grants as part of that we can bring academic learning loss support to the district. So I can find out what's about the free and reduced lunch. I just have not heard that there's not been a push for those applications and that they're down. So I will have to check on that.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that even sometimes goes out through PTA to remind parents to fill those out if you need them this year. But if that's one way that we're tracking student need, then I want to help stay on top of that so that we can continue to do our work as a community. Thank you.
Hi, this is Kelly Sheehan. Have the forms maybe not gone out because the state government is providing lunch and breakfast again this year?
Well, maybe that's my question. They're posted on the website, but I'm sorry, Dr. Iverson, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I guess that's the heart of my question, Kelly, is do we need them? And if we don't need them, then how are we tracking our Title I eligibility?
Exactly.
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Is that it for questions for Dr. Iverson? Okay, so we are moving on. This next item on the agenda is Stakeholder Outreach. That's Ms. Tanya Jodgett. Dr. Jodgett, sorry. Trustee Jodgett, are you there?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Stakeholder Outreach. You're listed down as Stakeholder Outreach on the agenda.
Oh, okay. Well, I think, gee, you really surprised me with this one. So I think, let me just settle into a different room. Hold on a sec. Okay. Now I look like a vampire. Sorry about that. So I think I basically spoke about this earlier, which is that we, as a committee, I think that I would like us to make a list of all the stakeholders and then really come up with very specific actions for reaching out to them. And I think, Jamal, you mentioned students, and there is staff and parents, and then, everybody else, including businesses, seniors, people who have, who are paying our taxes, but send their children to private schools, people who have no children, but are still paying our taxes. So these are all the various groups that I would like us to come up with really action items and ways of really reaching out to them and, just talk to them about our district and what it is that we're trying to achieve and how they could eventually assist us, right? And not just through money or approving our budgets, but also specifically whether it's I know we're still in COVID and it's difficult, but whether it's through just volunteering or just coming to our events to meet our students and meet our staff and just become more familiar with the schools that their money is supporting, right? So that was kind of the general framework of what I was thinking, and what I was thinking that really this committee should really focus on this school year. And I just want to say that I really am grateful to Dr. Iverson for answering all these questions, but my vision of this committee is actually quite different, which is that really this should be the focus, right? Not her answering ad hoc questions that our community members have, because we actually have other committees where these questions can be answered, and that this committee should really be about us talking about the messaging and then how to get it out. That's really that's how I would like to see. I mean, obviously, again, this is just me and it's just my vision. I don't know if everyone agrees, but that's what I would like us to move forward as a committee with that kind of a plan.
Ms. Muldoon?
Hi, thank you. I agree to a certain extent with that. But I also feel as a parent, this is sometimes the only place I get answers. My emails don't get answered. There's a lot of miscommunication. It's really hard to extract information. In some ways, it's because of there are multiple principals and multiple layers. So there are many stakeholders in our community who we need to be very much more invested than they are. But we also need to make sure that we're keeping parents as a main stakeholder, because they're not, because it is too hard to engage. So keeping all those pieces in mind, and I'm hopeful that this committee will move forward in the work they've done, and keeping that idea, that communication, like we can't take for granted that parents are getting good communication from schools. That's kind of a starting point. We need to go forward, and everything else can grow from there.
So I have a question for Jessica, which is that, are you saying that between parent-teacher conferences, the PTA, the other 5 committees that this district has, and also your ability really to reach out to board members with your questions, you are still actually not getting all the answers that you want, and you need this particular committee to answer your questions? Because if that's the case, then something.
I do. I spend a lot of time every day in outreach, in finding answers, but I'm on a lot of these committees. Let's thinking about the parents outside who, we want to make sure that all the parents are finding ways to get involved. But I've sent emails to board members and not gotten responses in the last few months, which is kind of different than in the past. I've sent emails through administration, not gotten responses to them. So if I were a parent, I might want to jump on this meeting, hoping that maybe I'll get a face-to-face conversation. So yes, there are different other places, but you shouldn't have to be connected in so tightly. If you're new to Greenburgh, you're going to be lost for a long time. And that's kind of how can we help to harness new families, because that new family might also have a neighbor who then we can connect in also. So thinking of each person as a new branch that we can get into. So I'm going to say I'm not a great example per se, but I still do have questions. Like the night before school, didn't know what time school started. It's different on the calendar and on the website. I'm a pretty connected and parent, and I still didn't know what time school actually started at my child's building. Those are very basic things. I don't know if I would necessarily come to this meeting to get that answer, but I would come to this meeting to let you guys know, hey, communication's not so great. Your data in 2 different places is wrong, and that's not okay. So I guess that's my maybe two different answers to your question.
Well, I mean, we definitely. Tanya, will you?
I'm done.
Okay. We appreciate the concerns, and I do know that in general for the board administration, we're absolutely continue to work on communication and with all stakeholders as Dr. Dragic mentioned, and obviously parents are a very important stakeholder there. So we appreciate the concern, and I promise you this is something that we are all paying very close attention to. David? Oh, actually, Amy had
first.
Amy had a hand up.
Yes, thank you. So I just wanted to add a couple of things. I agree with Tanya that we should reach out to all the stakeholders, maybe through different civic associations that are all around town. But I will tell you my experience as a parent, we have so many different schools. If you have 2 kids in 2 different schools, you only tune in to that one school. or that two schools that your kids are in? How do we as a parent get a continuous message? How do we as a parent get, for example, I started attending CEC because I had questions about Highview. And then later on, I had questions about RJ Bailey, then about the middle school. This allows you a platform to help parents with continuity. That's always going to be our problem because we have 6 different schools for pre-K to 12. Until we could really pull that in and have one continuous message, like Jessica says, some parents opt to come here because we could have a dialogue. We can't have a dialogue a lot of times at, work sessions because it's a very quick public comment, or at regular board meetings. I mean, we have to wait for hours if you guys go into executive session. This is supposed to be, at least historically, the way David has run it, is that it's a platform for parents who care about all the whole district, not just about our particular schools or our particular PTA, to really glean something, to learn something. Like I learned a lot about middle school and high school before my kids even entered. So to me, this is still an important platform for parents and, stakeholders too.
So I know that Sam has her hand up, but I just wanted to briefly respond to Amy, which is that I think that the issues that that you are talking about, Amy, and Jessica as well, perhaps that is something that the Education and Wellness Committee should really focus on, because you're really talking about, school functioning issues, right? This is a community engagement committee, and I know that previously it has been sort of a kind of very loose sort of information gathering place, but I think that we could perhaps sort of really reorganize and make this community engagement and make the education committee the place where you get your questions answered regarding the way the schools functions, the way the programs function, the way everything, really having to do with the education of your children from building to building function. So actually, you're giving me some ideas about maybe, how to reorganize that committee moving forward. Yeah.
David, I think you were before I raised my hand.
Yeah. Okay. So you talked earlier about the messaging and how to get it out. And I see you want to shift the emphasis to how to get it out. But you have to have a message that you want to put forward. And the way that I've done it is, the people on the committee are both part of the group trying to get the message out. And they're also the consumers. They're also the customers. They're also the people who want to know the information. And I find that if one person has a question, there usually are 50 or 100 other people out there somewhere who had the same question. So by having the dialogue, by having one person answer a set of questions, then that then gets multiplied and sent out to the other couple of people. Now, the old way of doing things was you had an email list of about 200 people. About 5 people always showed up at every meeting, and the other 10 kind of floated in and out of that 200. And we put out basically the meeting minutes, which ended up being a hot topics list of everything that was going on in the district every month. And it sort of functioned as kind of an impromptu high-level newsletter. And I would get emails saying, "Don't stop sending that out if there was ever any gap," or when is my email coming? Now we've shifted over from old email-based stuff to now we're on Zoom, and we're also on YouTube. So now people can look whenever they want and see what's going on. So by getting your questions answered here, there's a multiplier effect. It goes on out above and beyond just the people asking the question in the room, because we have the megaphone. So that's a good thing, I think. If you're saying that what we want is to emphasize being the army that goes out and gets the message out, then the question is, what is the message? Is the message a prefabricated set of ideas that you think that we want to put forward? Or is it the process of communication itself and the answers to the questions?
I'm gonna go ahead and take my turn because I want to add on to what David said. In that I hear what Tanya's saying is that a community and engagement committee should go out and engage with the community. And what Jessica's saying is that a community engagement committee, by nature of its title, invites the community in for engagement. And then what's David saying, if I hear you right, is that the community comes in, we hear on what level they want to engage. We as community members go out and act on what needs to be acted on, and that's how community organizing works. You put in an invitation to 100 people, 5 people show up, and then, like you said, the multiplier effect. So it sounds like what we're circling to is a difference on the meaning of community engagement committee that maybe goes back to those 4 bullet points. So bringing it back into the agenda a little bit, but as a parent, for my 2 cents, as a community organizer, I'm right there with Tanya. As a parent, I'm right there with Jessica, because there is no other place right now that, by the nature of its name, a parent with kid in more than one school can go to for a through line conversation. I go to all the PTA meetings, all the parent teachers, all the principals' coffees, but there's no place but here that I can talk about how is that curriculum in kindergarten going to affect my 4th grader? And what's it going to do to the taxpayer who lives next door, who I have to convince to go vote on the budget? This is a holistic place for that conversation. And I think, Tanya, that the Education and Wellness Committee speaks to some of that, but it isn't in its name to say, hey, you guy walking by at the library who's curious about the schools, you're maybe not going to put yourself forward to go visit the Education and Wellness Committee like you would the Community Engagement Committee. So maybe one of the first things we need to do is decide what we're doing here.
I agree.
I was going to say I agree also. That's exactly how I feel as a parent as well.
I agree.
You guys are giving me tons to think about tonight, and I definitely love it.
Yeah.
I certainly I mean, I guess we can go with all of the above. You're not going to stop people from coming to address their concerns who are part of the community. We are in fact here to engage those folks. I do think that if we are able to do a better job up front with 9 o'clock. If we're able to do a better job up front with communications, perhaps there'll be less need for certain questions. And I know that's something that we have communicated as a board is what that looks like. What does it look like for us to better engage the community? So it's an ongoing conversation, and we're going to take some of that because it is the Community Engagement and Communications Committee. So we are going to take some of that from the members who are here tonight. We're going to take your counsel and hopefully be able to package it into something that actually gets expressed into how we communicate with the overall district. So next up on the agenda, I had business outreach and student involvement. I think we kind of talked about a lot of those things when we talked about the various different bullet points. And as well as the various different stakeholders, both the business community as well as students are extremely important to what we're going to do as a school district. So that we're looking at, so we're looking at the future of work, we're looking at the future of education, we're looking at the future of what this district can look like, and hopefully getting students to be very, very, very actively involved with how we operate. So in those as we translate from those bullets to goals, I look forward to being able to specify some of the thoughts and ideas that I have on one, how we engage people, or how we engage students, and how their voices can be, I guess, added to everything that we're doing in the overall district. So we'll move on from that. The next up we have, I'm sorry, does anybody have any questions or comments on anything I just mentioned?
You're leaving out a very important factor, and that is the town. A lot of the things that we're trying to do The town is already engaged in setting the groundwork. Last week, we just approved a major expansion of Regeneron. They have labs there. And the town have a very good relationship with Regeneron. So we should be speaking to the town to see how we could piggyback on that and getting involved with Regeneron, which is a tech company. Another committee that is taking place is the Fairview Empowerment Zone, which I'm on that committee in terms of looking at ways of getting our kids mentorship programs in places like Tesla and other companies. So I think a prime contact, a prime person that you should be speaking to is Commissioner Garrett Duquesne. He could, because a lot of things we're talking about, the town is talking about the same thing. So it presents an opportunity for coordination. And the same thing, I know the town is doing a lot of work in making sure the town get every FEMA dollar possible for floods. And here again, we should be working with the town to see if we can access any of that FEMA, if it's not already being done. Maybe the board is doing that. But to speak to the town anyhow, to see where any of those FEMA funds could be directed at some of the flood damage in our facility. So I said, Commissioner Garrett Duquesne is an excellent contact that should be on that list in terms of active communication.
Thank you very much for that. I will be sure to make sure we're in touch. David?
From Garrett Duquesne, the list of civic associations that's on if you want to go down the line to contact all the civic associations, that's another avenue. Garrett Duquesne provided a list. The neighborhood associations that are subject to Greenburgh Central School District, as opposed to the town as a whole, are highlighted by Ivy. So there are some points of contact for you to start from for another strand of your outreach.
Got it. All right, we're coming up towards the tail end of our agenda. It's after 9 p.m., so I know folks want to get ready for sleepy time. We have some December 14th propositions, one for the Capital Reserve Fund and one for student ex officio school board member. I wanted to see if anybody had any questions or comments related to those propositions. Amy?
Yes, I had a question. So I watched the last board meeting, I believe, where I guess it was discussed about the December 14th proposition. The one about creating a capital reserve fund. I wanted to find out more about that in terms of what will be used to fund it, because it was very specific at the last meeting where they said it would not increase taxes, which I think is great, but where would the money come from, or what would it be used for, and what are we hoping, to achieve with that? Because I think a long time ago we had some in the district and it was scrapped because we needed the money in the budget. And so now it seems like we're going back to creating one. So I wanted to know more about it. Thank you.
David, I'm positive you can explain that one better than I.
I can. Dr. Iverson, do you want to do it or shall I?
Go ahead.
Okay. So basically, the Capital Reserve Fund is for multi-year projects. And at the end of each school year, if you're frugal and stay under your budget, there's some money left over. We spend a little bit of that money on small projects like cleaning up asbestos. But for the past several years, we have put in a $1.3 million that we expect that we will have as money that we can devote to our facilities. There are some projects that are small enough so that you can take care of those things right away. We have a bundle of stuff called Phase 1 having to do with, I think, the high-view roof and mostly ventilation and air quality fixes throughout the district that we've taken money for. But that money is continuing to come in. So what will happen is in the past couple of years, we passed a proposition where money will go into the Repair Reserve Fund. things can go into the repair reserve fund and you can repair things with them, but you can't do anything new. So we got into some difficulty where we wanted to do something for a particular roof, but you're replacing the roof instead of repairing the roof, and therefore you can't use the money. So obviously that's a bad problem. And in the future, we may want to do projects that you can't do with 1 year's worth of funding. So a way of carrying that funding over and maintaining that funding for a larger project, or of reducing the amount required in a bond if you want to do a larger project, is you put it in that capital reserve fund. You specify a maximum amount that can be in the capital reserve fund. The leftover money from the district budget goes in, and then it builds up over time, and then you expend it when you have a large construction project.
Thank you for explaining that, David. Any additional questions on the Capital Reserve Fund or the student ex officio school board member? Sarah?
I just was curious why, I guess I'm all for efficiency and speed with especially making fixes to the buildings, but how much is this giving us, rather than waiting until May? Can you explain what we're hoping to do between now and May, or December and May?
Well, I know that we're going to discuss that in greater depth and detail. But one of the things that happened was that we had a number of construction projects that were going to be in phase 2. We did research that said we can do everything at once, and between now and then we can get everything done. And we were trying to get the roof on the mansion so it doesn't decay due to water coming into it, preferably before May. And so now we're still going to work on that. We have a finance and facilities committee meeting later this week, at which we will discuss the pros and cons of what we can do in the short term and whether the Capital Reserve Fund will actually play a part in that. It's an ongoing issue. I'd like to give you a pat answer, but there's a tug of war going back and forth, and it's not resolved yet.
Well, thank you very much for that, David. And guys, it's 9:10. We have one last agenda item which expresses other concerns. If anybody has anything that they quickly like to bring up, great. Otherwise, I definitely want to let everybody get some rest. And I'd certainly look forward to future CEC meetings. I'm really looking forward to working with all of you. So does anybody have anything else they'd like to address this evening?
Yes, I would like I think if you are not yet a voting member of the CEC and want to become one, please send an email. You can send it to J. Thomas at greenburghcsd.org. You can send it to Ivy Kraus, IKRAUS, at greenburghcsd.org. Make a request and we'll put you on the agenda so that you can become a voting member of this committee.
And I'd love for all of you guys to do just that. That would be awesome. So if there's nothing else, this has been wonderful. Thank you guys again for entrusting me as the chair of this group. Let's make the CEC, let's take it. Let's let this be what drives the progress in our school district. Dr. Iverson can't do it without the community. So let's get out there and really support her. And I appreciate all you guys, and everybody have the most wonderful of evenings.
Good night.
All right.
Good night, everyone.
Good night,
Thank you.
everyone. Night.
Night.
Good night.